watching Gearz. Brought to you by LMC Truck. Restore, maintain, customize.
Hey, welcome to Gearz. You know, a while back, we started to build up on a project called the Rat Roadster. Now, this is a wild 32 Ford Roadster that's designed to have the look and the attitude and the performance of something that would have just dominated the street scene back in the late 60s. Yeah, we're talking about building the baddest car in the valley. Now, this is kind of a tough era because hot rods were starting to take a backseat to muscle cars at this point. That's why our criteria is very specific. Most important, got to be able to run at least the mid-12s in street form. That would make it fast enough to be able to spank just about any muscle car running on the road at the time. Then it needs to handle and stop well, be reliable enough for daily use, and that is by today's standards, not by 1968. Then, of course, it needs to be reasonably affordable, best bang for the buck, which means you have to build it yourself. Then, of course, it has to be really cool, and that means it's got to be unique. Got to be different than everything else that you see out there. Can't be another cookie cutter 32. Now, as you can see, so far, we are right on the money. We've got a blown small block Chevy kicking out close to 600 horsepower, a TKO 5-speed, side pipes with header dumps, cheater slicks with ET wheels, and of course, diamond stitched racing seats. But as cool as it is, it's still not unique enough to blow everybody's minds and make them all take notice when you drive into a burger joint. So today we're going to show you how to step beyond what you buy and stretch it into something that you make yourself. Okay, the first thing we're going to deal with is the shifter. Now obviously, we could just bolt on an arm and a knob and be done with it.
That was easy.
That's also very boring. So what we're going to do is build something that actually fits the era a little better. Something that's part rock and roll, part James Bond. Come on. I found the perfect shift knob in my collection of vintage microphones. Not only is it a real mic, but it actually fits your hand really well. Now the challenge is to make it fit. The first step was to determine just exactly where I wanted the shifter to sit, and a bent-up piece of coat hanger is perfect for this. Then it was just a matter of transferring the shape to some steel, cutting it out.
Heck, I've lost count.
Number 5. I believe that's 6. There we go. There. Next, we'll modify the microphone to fit the shift arm. And in just a short period of time, this is what you've got. Now that is a cool shifter. And all we gotta do is chrome the handle, this thing's ready to go in a car. Now, you're probably wondering about this little wire hanging out here. Now that's because inside I'm gonna mount the switches for my exhaust cutouts, so when I flip the switch, the car gets louder. Just like James Bond, man. The cool thing is you can do this with a doorknob or a kegger handle, whatever you want your shifter knob to be. But if you want a vintage microphone, you're going to be in trouble because these are not out there. So we went to the guys at Purple Hazen to see if they could make something like this that you guys could get. And using this as a prototype, that's exactly what they did. Let's check it out. Starting with a CNC program of the original microphone, an exact replica of the mic as well as the shifter handle were whittled out of aluminum and then polished. Then the wiring harness for the exhaust cutouts was modified to fit into the microphone. Check this out. The face rotates out of the way, and you've got 2 little buttons hidden inside, one to operate the exhaust cutout on each side of the car. This would be the perfect place to also hide a line lock or a nitrous button or whatever you'd want to hide. Then, of course, take a look at this. The wiring runs out the back and is hidden in a groove until everything goes under the shifter boot, so nobody is going to know this is there except you. Now, to go with the handle, we also got one of their high-performance short-throw shifters, so we can really lay into that transmission. So we got the performance of the shifter, we have the looks of the handle, And then we have that sneaky thing going on there too. So we are covering all the bases here. The best part is you can get one of these to fit your car. All you got to do is call it Purple Hazing, tell them you want one. All right, we're going to put this on the car, see how it looks. Oh man, that is so cool. And you talk about unique. Now that is something that nobody is going to have seen before. And look at this, it's right where it needs to be. Come off the steering wheel, right to the shifter. It's right close to your leg, but not hitting it. This is perfect. Now, with this out of the way, we've got to get some gauges in this thing. But not just any gauges. Now, it needs to be a company that would have been around back then. And I have got just the gauges sitting right over there. SoCal Speed Shop has been doing stuff like this since 1946. And we got our gauges from another speed shop that's been around almost as long, Honest Charlie Speed Shop. If you were building a hot rod in the late 60s, you probably got parts from SoCal Speed Shop or Honest Charlie's. Now, take a look at these gauges. These are really cool. You got the SoCal logo in them. The tach goes to 10 grand. You got volts, you got water. Your speedometer goes all the way to 200. Now, if we hit 200 in that car, that's going to be a ride now, believe me. Look at this. We also have oil, we have fuel, and then you've got all the sending units to hook these things up and make them work right. Now, instead of just drilling the dash and bolting these things in like they are in the box here, we needed something more special than that. So, we got this instrument panel that not only mounts all 6 gauges, but it also has this insert that's made out of genuine Fender pick guard material. Just in case you didn't know, Fender guitars were red hot in the late 60s. We're going to talk about that a lot more later in the show. But as you can see, this is going to make that dash just pop. To mount a SoCal Speed Shop instrument panel, the first thing you have to do is cut a big chunk out of the dash. But that's not a problem because it comes with a cutting template so you don't end up butchering the dash. With the edges all cleaned up, now it's just a matter of dropping the panel into the opening and bolting it in place with the supplied brackets. Now, I know it seems like kind of a pain to have to cut your dash like this, but the thing that makes this panel so unique is that it not only mounts the gauges behind the dash for a cool 3-dimensional look, but it also angles the gauges up toward the driver so they're easier to see. That is much better than just mounting them flat like a lot of the other panels on the market. Now, it gets even better when you stick in your Fender pickguard material and then start putting in your gauges. And that is it. Now, take a look at that. That is an awesome looking dash. And when you add to it the microphone shifter, you got some cool stuff happening here. A great blend of hot rod and rock and roll. Now, on that note, got one more thing I'm going to show you that we're doing here. This is a vintage Ludwig Speed King bass drum kick pedal, and I'm going to use that as my gas pedal. Now, what I'm going to do is take the pedal part and combine it with this low car pedal to create a very unique gas pedal. And I can't think of anything more fitting for a late 60s hot rod than to have a gas pedal that says Speed King. Now, obviously I can't put this on right now. I got to finish the hump there for the transmission, but at least you get an idea of where I'm going with this. Okay, moving outside the car, we come to one area that definitely needs to be dealt with, the fenders, or in this case, the lack of fenders. Now, I know everybody is building fenderless cars for 2 different reasons. Number 1, it's cheaper. Number 2, it's easier. And it looks great. If you're building a late 40s, early 50s car, it's perfect. But by the late 60s, it was illegal not to have fenders on your car, and the cops were watching. So what guys did is take the fenders and cut them down or bob them. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to go bobbing for fenders. Now, anytime you're custom building a fender, it's always a good idea to at least start with something as opposed to totally starting from scratch. So we got a couple of slightly damaged fenders from Brookfield Roadsters, since we're just going to cut them up anyway. All right, with the stock fender mocked into place, now it's time to decide how you are going to cut that fender. Now, the idea back in the late 60s was to cut away as much of the fender as possible and to still stay out of jail. Now, the law said that all of the tread had to be covered, but most cops back in the day would let you off with a warning if you had as much as 1/3 of the tread showing. So that's the look we're gonna go after. About 1/3 of the tread sticking out. Now, when you're establishing your cut line, it's really up to you how you want the fender to look. Just make sure it flows well into the body. With the cut lines established, it's time to take the plunge and start cutting. Once your cuts are done, the next step is to true up the edges. Now, back in the day when guys were bobbing fenders like this is pretty much where they stopped. The problem is, you got a cool radius starting here on the fender, and then it just stops right there with a straight cut. Looks unfinished. So what I'm gonna do is go to work on this with a power hammer and work that radius in so this looks more like a factory fender, just smaller. Okay, we're starting to get a little more radius down in here. Now that is more like it. Now check it out. Notice how the fender blends right into the base of the body. Then up here it radiuses more, curves down more toward the tire. Then we finished it off by rolling a bead in it. Now this is subtle stuff that makes such a big difference. Hey, welcome back to Gearz. Today's show is all about those little details that you can do to just about any vehicle to make it unique and different than anything else out there on the road. All you need is some parts and some imagination. Now, a perfect vehicle to demonstrate that on is the Rat Roadster, because there are a million 32s running down the road, so it's a little bit of a challenge to build one that's different. It doesn't look like everything else, but it is possible. That's what we're showing you. So far, we've put in a custom microphone shifter, a gauge cluster with fender pickguard material, a vintage bass drum kick pedal is gonna be the gas pedal, and I've bobbed the fenders. But I've got a couple of other surprises that are gonna make this car even more unique. Come on. Now, obviously, there is a lot of musical influence built into this car. That's because the music scene was huge in the late 60s. So I hooked up with the Gibson Custom Shop, and we built a special Rat Roadster guitar to go with the car. Custom headers and all. Starting with the iconic Gibson ES335, I started cutting and chopping away in true hot rod fashion. With the body thoroughly cut up, the next step was to start fabricating a header that would flow with the body. Once that was done, the body was then sanded and radiused so there were no gaps, no binding, no sharp edges. We want it smooth. Finally, the guitar was ready for paint, and Malcolm and the boys from West Kentucky Collision Center got the nod to work their magic on it. After that, it went back to the Gibson Custom Shop where they did the final assembly on it, and here it is, a custom Hot Rod 335 that has a stainless steel exhaust system built right into the body. Is that cool or what? Now, a lot of you guys have been wondering, what color were we gonna do the Rat Roadster? And this has been kind of tough because I needed something that matched the look in the era, but I also wanted to stay away from your typical hot rod colors like black and red and yellow. So I hooked up with Ron Payton at PPG, and we came up with this killer metallic green. Now, if you look close at that, you will swear that that is a candy color, like a green over a silver base, but it's not. It is a base clear coat, so just about anybody can paint this color. Now, if you want some of this color, you can get it at Auto Body Color and Supply in Nashville, Tennessee. The color is called Rat Roadster Green, and we'll also have the paint code listed on the website if you want to mix some up yourself. Okay, and looking at the era that we're shooting for, you might be wondering, why a Gibson? Well, in 1969, the #1 rock group in America was named Creedence Clearwater Revival, and the sound of Gibson's on the record was unmistakable. However, in spite of that, and the fact that you could really rock on one of these things, The #1 guitar player in 1969 was not a Gibson player. He played a Fender. His name was Jimi Hendrix. And we had the honor of sitting down with his longtime friend and bass guitar player, Billy Cox.
He said, that's all right. I'll make it. I'll go to Europe and make it, and I'll send for you. 2.5 years later, he sent for me. And my first gig was Woodstock. He played the Star Spangled Banner. And if you hear on the DVD, I played for the first 9 notes. And then I said, wait a minute, there's no one playing but me and him. And this was not rehearsed. So I had better lay out. And when I did, that was history.
Since Jimi Hendrix and Billy Cox were such a huge part of the late 60s, it was only fitting that we include them in the buildup of the Rat Roadster. And what I'd love to have is a Billy Cox pick and a Jimi Hendrix pick.
You got it.
That I can put on the dash, cover with clear coat, so they'll permanently be on here. Can I get
You got
that?
it. I got a few at home.
Can I get you to sign my dash and stuff?
Sign your dash.
The best part is, I had a chance to sit down with Billy and jam on a few of the tunes that he's putting together for his latest project, The Last Gypsy Stand-In. And I tell you, at 70 years old, he can still play as good as he ever could. So, we have a little bit of Gibson, we have a little bit of Fender, we got a whole lot of musical history woven into this project. Now, I know some of you guys are probably wondering, is this going to become a limited edition Gibson like the Copperhead and Crazy Horse guitars? Well, it's a good possibility, but Gibson wants to hear from you. So you got to go to Gibson.com and tell them that you want a Rat Roadster 335. And I bet they'll build you one, but it's not going to be as fast as mine.
Tool Tech. Brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals since 1919.
You know, one of the main goals of a show like this is to encourage people to get out there and build something with their own 2 hands. But those 2 hands aren't going to be very effective if they're not wrapped around the proper tools to help you do the job. Now, one job that comes up all the time when you're working on cars is cutting metal. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different ways to do that, but one tool I get asked about all the time is a plasma cutter. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. Now, in the past, we've looked at all kinds of tools that'll cut metal. Bandsaws, sawzalls, jigsaws, shears, and they're all good tools. But a plasma cutter is a whole different animal than these conventional cutting tools, and it'll do things that these can only dream of. So, do you need one? Well, let's take a look. The first thing you're going to notice about a modern plasma cutter is the size. I mean, these things are tiny compared to what they were just a couple years ago. Now, I've got a couple different machines here from Miller. Either one is perfect for your home or your shop. The first is this 375 Extreme, and what makes it unique is it's a 110 machine until you need more power. Then you just put on the 220 plug, and you've got a 220 machine, which makes this extremely versatile. Now, this machine here looks the same, but no, this is the 625, and as you can see, it is a straight ahead 220 machine. Now, I know some of you guys are looking at this going, oh, come on, man, these phony little machines, they look like lunch boxes. They ain't gonna cut anything. You need to think again. This will cut up to 3/8 inch steel. This will cut up to 5/8 inch steel. Yeah, these things ain't messing around. Here's how they do it. The plasma cutter strikes a pinpoint arc that melts the metal in a very concentrated area. Then it uses compressed air to blow the molten metal out the bottom, leaving about a 1/8 inch wide cut line. Since the arc comes from the end of a handheld torch, it's extremely mobile and maneuverable, allowing you to make incredibly precise cuts, or trim excess metal in places and ways that you could never do with a saw or a grinder. Another cool thing about these modern plasma cutters is they're so portable. I mean, just put them in a box, take them pretty much wherever you want to go. And they're affordable. That's a big thing because it hasn't always been that way. No matter what your budget is, Miller has probably got a plasma cutter to fit it. Now, if you are never going to cut metal, never going to do any of that kind of stuff, you don't need a plasma cutter. But if you're going to cut metal from time to time, at home, at the shop, work, the garage, farm, whatever, A plasma cutter is one of those tools that will help you do it yourself.
And now, what are you working on?
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Howard Tuttle, and his project is a 79 International Scout. Now, the cool thing about this project, he got it from his dad when he was only 21 years old, and he spent 10 years building it up into what it is. Now, take a look at what he's got here. This is a nice rig. It's got a rebuilt engine. Here's a shot of the engine. Dana 44 axles front and rear, 33-inch tall tires, custom paint job, fiberglass doors, bikini top, and the list goes on and on, man. He has decked this thing out. Now, the best part about this project is, usually when somebody does something like this, they take it out to car shows and just make it look good. No, not Howard, man. Here is a shot of Howard doing with his Scout what you should do with a Scout. He's out using it, four-wheeling it. Now, I'd love to see that. Now, the story goes on because Howard has given the truck to his son, Ryan, who is a junior in high school, drives it every day, and he says he gets all kinds of looks and attention out of the truck. Yeah, I bet he does. Now, Howard says the best thing about this, though, is you've had 3 generations of Tuttles enjoy this truck. Man, that is a great legacy. Great job on the truck. Now, the rest of you guys out there, while you're working on something in the shop, take some pictures, send it into the GearzTV.com website. We'll see if we can get it on the air. All right, takes care of it for us today. I'm going to work some more on the Rat Roadster. You need to get out there and work on something. We'll see you later.